All right, so we have here some laboratory diagnosis for Plasmodium. We have already covered your PBS, which is the gold standard. We already talked about thick smear and the thin smear. So for this lecture video, I will be focusing my discussion on this new breakthrough in malarial diagnosis, which is the RDTs or rapid diagnostic tests. So this rapid diagnostic test right here is simple and quick and effective tools to detect Plasmodium species, especially in resource limited settings, especially here in the Philippines. So, not all the time there is a medtech on duty, and not all the time there is a medtech who can examine PBS. So, usually, if RDTs can be done by non medtechs, they can be done by volunteers. So, this is how um, effective and simple this test or this kit is. So, rapid diagnostic tests or your RDTs usually detect malarial antigens in the patient's blood. So, these antigens, you already know on your anatomy and physiology that these antigens are proteins released by the parasites. So, in each parasite, there is an antigen. So in each parasite, the parasite has the ability to release proteins which are considered as antigens that we can identify. So if the parasites can release antigens, the bodies would release antibodies to counteract these antigens. So these are the things that we will be identifying in your RDTs. So this test is just very quick, so within 15 to 20 minutes, the test would actually give you a result. So RDTs shine because of their simplicity. They're very easy to use. So they require minimal training. So they don't need any electricity or expensive equipment. They don't need microscopes. So they usually come in various formats like this one, cassettes, some cards or strips, and so meaning they are very adaptable to different situations. So just imagine if you're in a remote village, in a remote village without a lab or a medical technologist, RDT would actually step in as a hero. So we could tap trained volunteers to test and diagnose on the spot. So this is why RDTs are very important. So this is where it gets interesting. So once the prescribed reaction time is up, you'll see lines appear on the test. So let's break this down. So what we have here is the control line in C. So this C here, this is the control. This means that the test is valid and working. So if there's a line in the C here, if na line diri, that would actually tell you that the test is valid and working. If there's no line in C, that would only mean that the test is invalid. And you need to repeat it with a new kit. Again, if there's a line in C, C means control, that would only mean that the test is valid and working. If there's no line in C, the test is invalid. So you need to repeat it with a new kit. So if there's a line in C and in PF, so this is PF. PF means Plasmodium falciparum reaction. So if there's a line in C and in PF, this would only mean that the patient is suffering from Plasmodium falciparum infection. If there's a line in C and PAN, in here, this one, there's a line in C and PAN. PAN means all. So usually PAN points to Plasmodium vivax. Usually, but This could also mean that the patient may suffer as well Plasmodium malariae and ovale. So if the C, oh, if the line has uh, points to pan and there's also a line in C, that would only mean that the test is valid and it points to Plasmodium vivax infection, Plasmodium malariae infection, and Plasmodium ovale infection. That would only mean that you need a medtech to distinguish kung unsa jud ang sakit sa patient. So, if the lines is found or are found, sorry, if the lines are found in C, PAN, and PF, lines C and PF, this would suggest mixed infection. So, meaning more than one species of malaria parasite is present. Okay? So, this is an example of an invalid test, this picture. So, why invalid? The test is invalid because there's no line in C. Even if there's a line in PF right here, and if there's no line in C, meaning the test is invalid, you need to repeat it to a new kit. The same here. Even if there's a line in PF but there's no line in C, meaning your kit is invalid or your test is invalid, you need to repeat it with another test. All right? So this C stands for control. This we have here PV. This stands for Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum. These are the test lines. PAN stands for all, all Plasmodium, vivax, malariae, or ovale. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know and to remember is the C line, the control line. So if there's a control line right here, that would only mean that your test is valid. And if there's a line in your PV, that would tell you that the patient is suffering from Plasmodium vivax infection. So if there's a line on your Plasmodium falciparum or your PF, that would only tell you that the patient is suffering from Plasmodium falciparum. If there's a line in your PAN, that would tell you that the patient is suffering, or it would suggest that your patient is suffering from mixed infection. Okay? This is your RDTs. So let's go to the treatment. So I will not be focusing on the treatment since it is not our job as medtechs to give treatments to patients suffering from malaria. But I would be focusing more on the prophylaxis. But here in our country, more than 90% is actually malaria free. So prophylaxis is often unnecessary. However, if you're heading to one of the provinces with indigenous malaria like Palawan, Sultan Kudarat, and you're planning an nighttime or outdoor activities there, taking preventive medication is advised or taking prophylaxis is really advised. So if you remembered, mosquitoes love the night and that's when you're most at risk. But if you're not sure about the malaria status in a specific locality, you can actually reach out to the local health unit for guidance and they would actually provide the most accurate advice. So, but if you're heading to Africa, so Africa is a very good destination, so beautiful destination, but you're heading over there, malaria prevention becomes a bit more complex. So, you need to follow the golden rule. You always follow the prophylactic treatment guidelines of your destination country. So it would differ from one country to another. So you need to do your homework, you need to research the malaria risk in the area that you're visiting, and you need to start taking the prophylactic medicine before you travel. Again, before you travel. That is to ensure that your blood is adequately protected against potential exposure. Again, timing is really everything in malaria prevention. As you can see in all of the periods that we have discussed, from the incubation down to the paroxysm, there's always proper timing in malaria prevention. And then you need to So you need to outsmart your Plasmodium species. Okay? So that actually ends our malaria lecture. So I will be ending my lecture here, and I will be proceeding to another species, and that would be your Babesia species. This would be a very, very quick lecture.